Hi viewers, welcome to DP Animation, and today we are going to be working on my candy stick animation. Alright, so let's not waste time, let's do something. We are going to be using Cinema 4D R18, okay? So this is what we are going to do. Let me play it from the start. A candy stick animation. Alright. Okay. So this is what we are doing, alright? So let's go back to Cinema 4D. Alright. First, let's bring in a landscape. Let's go and click on the cube here. Click on the cascading arrow beneath the cube here and select landscape. Okay. Then make all the sizes. Come to its attributes and make all the sizes 600 by 600. Alright. Let me zoom in and see. Alright. So we have this. Okay. Let me take the grade off. Alright. So we have this. Okay. So now the next thing to do is to go and select a cissoid, a spline cissoid. Okay. We will go to the spline tool here and click on the cascading arrow. Then select the cissoid here. Okay. Then come to the cissoid attributes. Change the type to what? Lemniscate. Alright. Then increase the lemniscate to something like 800. 800 is okay. Okay. Alright. Now the next thing to do is to go and select a spline wrap. You come to the bend tool here and click on the cascading arrow beneath it. Then select a spline wrap. Alright. Okay. Now you click and drag the spline wrap into the landscape. Alright. So after this, click and drag the cissoid into the spline column here on the spline wrap. Alright. By so doing, the landscape bends around the what? The cissoid by giving you an abstract kind of shape. Okay. Alright. So now what you have to do next is what? Work on the spline wrap. Alright. So you come to the spline orientation or the spline axis. Here is what? Plus X. Whilst the landscape's orientation is what? Plus Y. Alright. So let's change the axis of the spline wrap to something like plus Y. Okay, so that it will match the landscape's orientation. Alright. Okay. Now let's work on the spline wrap. Let's come to its attributes here. So you hold the control key, then click in the middle of the size to set a key. Alright. Then pull the beginning points down, then the ending points down. Alright. Then come to spline size. Okay. What you have to do is just pull the ending down. Pull it down. Then you come to rotation. Pull the beginning up so that your distance will kind of coil. Will kind of look like it's coil. Or so the spline rotation again, the last one, pull it to something like 0.4. Okay. All right. So we kind of have a kind of coiled candy. So the next thing to do here is to bring in a test. So what we do is what? Go to spline again, click on the cascading arrow, then select test. Okay. Select test. All right. So here you have to choose a thin text or a thin font. Okay. So let's write something like Joe. Let's type Joe here. Joe. Joe. Then increase the height or size to something like 800. So we'll have this. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can have a better kind of font to use here. Let me see if I'll have some nice light fonts here to use. Okay, this will do. This font will do. All right. So you see how thin the outline is. Now, after creating your test, the next thing that you have to do is what? Click on the spline wrap. What we are going to do here is what? Use the test to replace the cissoid on the spline column here. Okay. So with our spline wrap selected, click on the test, then drag it to replace the cissoid here. You see that? By so doing, the mesh forms the jaw test. Okay, it forms the jaw. All right. See, let me just use the offset on the spline wrap to animate for you to see. You see that? You see that? It's like some kind of clay kind of substance. All right. Okay. So now we have this. We are going to animate it, okay, by using the offset on the spline wrap. Okay. So select the spline wrap and move our timeline to the starting point, which is 0. Then change the offset from 0% to something like 20%. Okay, so you have this. All right. Then you set a key on the offset. All right. Okay. Then after that, you come to the 2. Okay, the 2. Then you drag its bar to something like 0%. Then you set a key 2 at the beginning. All right. Then the next thing to do is come to the spline size strength. We come to the spline size strength. Spline size strength. Okay, it's this one. All right. So that one too, we drag the key to 0%. Then we set a key. All right. We drag the bar to 0%, then set a key. By holding the control, then clicking on the stopwatch there to set a key. All right. So after setting the first key, you move your timeline to something like, let's say, 60 seconds. Now let me just make it 80 seconds. All right. Let me increase the frame rate here. The frame to something like 120. Okay. Okay. So let's drag our timeline to something like 80 frame. After dragging our timeline to 80 frames, we drag the 2 bar to 100%. Then set a second key. Okay. Then come to the spline size strength. Then crank it up by dragging the bar to 100%. Then holding the control, you click to set a key again. Okay, so you have this. See that? Okay. So the next thing to do here is this. We are going to use the offset. Okay, the offset is 20%. Okay, but for the offset, we move the frame to something like let me see 100 frames. Then drag it to something like this. Okay, so the offset, let's crank it also up to something like 100%, then set a key. Okay, you can open it up to something like 120. Then let's see. So you have something like this. If you see that it's too bulky, you can still come on the spline wrap. Okay. If you see that, no, your candy or your mesh is too bulky, you can still come to the spline wrap and work on the sizes. Okay. You can work on them. See that? You can work on them, tone them down. See? See? So that you have something like this. Okay. So at this point, you are just working on the what? Your shape. Okay, you are just smoothing the shape. Okay, I'm just smoothing the shapes right now. Okay, all right. The spline size. Let me see the spline size. Okay, this is okay. Let me come to okay, rotation there is okay. So I have this. Okay. If you see that there is too much space within the text, you can come and select the text, then reduce the horizontal spacing. Okay? Reduce the reduce the horizontal spacing so that it will be closer. So that you have something like this, something close. Okay? Alright. Okay. So at this point we are doing our Joe Candy animation. Okay? Okay. So from here on, the next thing to do is to what? Is to smoothen the nerves. Okay? The subdivision nerves. Okay? Or the mesh. Okay? So we'll go to the subdivision tool here and click on the cascading arrow underneath it and select subdivision surface. Okay? Then you click on the landscape and drop it inside the subdivision surface. Alright? By so doing, by dropping it, the landscape inside, it smoothens the surface of our animation. Okay? It adds additional meshes to it to smoothen it. Okay? Look at this. You see how smooth it is? And look at the previous one. Let me off it and show you. You see how jagged the edges and the stuffs are? Alright. Alright, then let's apply some color. Okay? Let's apply some material. So we come to the material column here, double click inside, or you double click inside to create a material, or come to create material, new material. Okay, you create your material, double click on the material, then come here. Okay, you click on color, texture, then let's use gradient. Okay, you are creating a candy animation, so let's choose gradient. All right. Okay, let's click on the color, the gradients, then go and change the black to something like red. Okay, then let's maintain the white. So let's drag each of them close. Drag them close a bit. Okay, so we have this. So let's drop this shader onto the landscape and see what we have. You see that? Beautiful. Okay, so we have our Joe Candy. All right. So now the next thing to do is the stick. All right. The stick that is standing on. Okay. All right. So to do the stick, come to the spline tool here, then click on the cascading arrow and select helix. Okay. After selecting the helix, change the plane orientation to XZ. All right. Then you bring it down. Okay. So now what we have to do next is reduce the start radius to something like 140. Then the end radius to 140 as well. So we have this. Okay. So now we have this. Now the next thing to do is the height. Reduce the height a bit. Then we bring it up, pull it up. Okay. Now after doing this, hit C on your keyboard to make the spline editable. Okay. All right. So after hitting on the C to make the spline editable, come to the point mode here. and click on the point mode to bring out the point mode here. Then the next thing to do is select one point on the spline, the ending point. Okay. After selecting it, bring it, drag it down to form a thin line. See that? All right. So after this, the next thing to do, maybe you delete a couple of dots here. So click on the selection, live selection tool, then delete a couple of key points here. And delete these ones. Okay. Then click on the middle one. Okay. Now go to mesh on the menu bar. Then select spline, select hard interpolation so that I make the line straighter instead of the curve within the point there. All right. After that, then you go back again to the mesh, then select spline soft interpolation. You see that? Okay. So now the next thing we are going to do here is to select the 2 points, the curved one and the last one. So you hold the shift key, then click on the last key point, then drag it in. Drag it into the center. Okay. So you have this. All right. You have this. But if you see that here is too sharp for you, you can still delete these key points. Just select the key point, delete, select, delete, select them, then delete, then select and delete. Then the next thing to do is click this one, move it out. And like always, you go to the mesh on the menu bar, then select spline, hard interpolation, then go back again, spline, then change it to soft interpolation. Okay, so that it will curve it well. And if it's still not curved well, come and select scale tool here, click on the scale tool. All right, then drag the end points to curve the thing well. You see that? Okay, let's leave it like this. I'm sure you guys will produce something better for me to see. Okay. All right, now let's go and select the live selection tool. Then change the mode. Okay, so now we have this. Okay, now we have created our stick spline. The next thing that you have to do is go to the spline tool, then click on the cascading arrow, then select a circle. All right. Now reduce the circle's radius to something like 60. Okay. Then go to the tools bar, then click on the subdivision surface and select sweep. Okay, a sweep knob here. All right. So now we have these 3 items, a sweep knob, a circle, and a helix. Okay. So you are going to select these 2, the circle and the helix, and drop them inside the sweep. You see, by doing so, mind you, when you drop them inside, the circle have to be on top of the helix. Okay. All right. So now the size of the circle is too big. So let's click on the circle and reduce the size. Let's reduce the size to something like I think it's okay like this. Okay, it's okay like this. Let's leave it like this. Okay, so now we have this. Now let's apply some material on the stick. So let's double click or go to create and create new material. Like always, we double click on the shader. Okay, we come to texture, then select gradient. Okay, we click inside the gradient. All right, change the 2DU to 2DV to switch the shading side. Okay, then double click on the black points. then make it red, pull it red. Okay, so now you have red. So you drag this one in. Okay, so you set a key here, set a key, make this one red. Okay, so like this till you end it. So now we have stripes of what? Red and white color here. Okay, so you will select it and drop it onto the sweep. Okay, you see that when we drop it, we are not seeing the strips of the stick well. Okay, so what you have to do is you select the shader here, then come to what? Tile. Okay, you have the tile here, U tile, then what? V tile. So let me change the U tile to something like 2. So let me change the V tile to something like 2. Okay. 4. That one is still less. Oh, let me make it 5. Okay. All right. So let me start afresh. Okay. You see that when we drop the shader onto the stick, the sweep nerve here, or the stick, we are not seeing all the stripes within it. Okay. So go and select the shader. Then here, tiles U, then tiles V. Change the tiles V to something like 5. 5. Okay. You see, by so doing, we have our stripes within the stick. Okay. All right. So this is our Joe animation. Let's play it and see. See, because of the subdivision surface there, smoothing, so it's making the animation slow. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So now to animate the stick, let's say whilst the distance from the stick will also be forming here from the top there. So what you have now is our Joe candy stick animation. Okay. So now you see that we have applied shaders to it, but we have not add any reflections to it. Okay, when we come to the shader here. Okay. So now let's add reflection to the candy. All right. So let's click into our shader, then come to reflection or reflectance. Then change from what? Specular bling to something like reflection legacy. Okay. Then increase the strength. Okay. You see that? All right. The strength is what? 40. Let's do it to the second one too. The second shader. Then change from blink to reflection legacy. Then increase the strength. Okay. All right. So you have this. So now let's apply some lighting. You can click on the lights, then go and select the array here. The array here. Just click on the array, then drop the light in. Okay. Then reduce the number of copies to something like 4. Okay. So now you have 4 lights within our scene. No, I think there's a default one added to it. So let me make it 3. So that to be 4. 4 lights within our scene. Let's increase the radius to 1. So that it will be 1250 radius. Let me make it 2000. 3. Let me see. Okay. Now if your light is too much, you can still reduce it. See that? If it's too much, you can still reduce it. Okay, I think the reflection is too strong. So let me just go and reduce it a bit to something like 20. 20, reflection strength 20. Okay, so you have this. Let me apply the subdivision on it and let's see. Okay, so this is our Joe Candy animation. All right. Okay. Now let's create something like a background for it. For the background, you can either decide to use a plane or not. It's simple. You can just go ahead and use a plane, click plane, then change the orientation to something like plus Z. Then increase the size, something like 5,000. Okay, so that it will be at the back. Okay, let's pull it backwards. You have this. Okay, you can just enlarge the plane if you want. Okay, then after creating the plane, you create a new shader. Okay, you create a new shader, come to color, gradient, select gradient. Okay, then you go into the gradient, change it from 2DU to let me see, circular, 2D circular. Okay, okay, so the 2D circular, you change the white to something like orange. You click OK and make the orange stronger. You click OK. Then the black point to something like yellow. The black point to yellow. Okay. Hey. You click the black points to yellow. Let me move this one here. So that you have this. Okay. So that's, you click and drag it onto the plane. You see that? So you have something like this. Okay. If your light source is too much, you can still reduce it. You can still reduce it. Okay, I think 2 is okay. That's 1. Then plus the 1, the default one, I'm making 2. So I think this is okay. So you have this. All right, Joe Candy. So this comes to the end of our candy animation. All right. So you guys try it. I hope you do something better with what I've taught you. Let me see what we have done. Okay. Okay. All right. So even if you want to set a camera, like how I did it here from the beginning, I set 3 camera. You see? This is the first camera, the animation starting point. Then this is the second camera, the middle, and this is the ending camera. Okay? All right. All right. So you guys should try your hands on it.